I am the Philosophical Bachelor, and welcome to the next video in the series on the Tao Te Ching, starting with Chapter 6. The Valley Spirit does not die and is a mysterious woman. From her womb emerge heaven and earth. She gently preserves and works effortlessly. According to the commentators in Red Pine, the valley represents emptiness. In this chapter 6, we are told that the valley spirit is eternal, a mysterious woman and the origin of heaven and earth. In chapter 1, those characteristics belong to the Tao. The Tao is hence like the valley spirit, characterized by emptiness, longevity, creativity, and wu-wei. In chapter 33, the Tao's relation to the world is analogous to the streams from the valleys flowing into the river and sea. Just like how the streams from the mountain valleys nourish the rivers and seas, and thus are the origins of the rivers and seas, the Tao sustains the world and is continuously working in the world. Its work is effortless, just like the way the streams, rivers, and seas, through the forces of nature, flow effortlessly. And yet the streams, rivers, and seas shape the land and nourish life. Chapter 7. The reason why heaven and earth endure eternally is because they do not live for themselves. Likewise, the wise person puts himself last, and thus is foremost, treats his body as if it was not his, and thus his body survives. Because he is not selfishly concerned over his goals, he manages to accomplish them. After telling us in chapter 5 that heaven, earth, and the wise person are not benevolent, here in chapter 7, Lao Tzu says heaven and earth are eternal because they are not self-serving, and the wise person puts others first, disregarding even his own body. But because he does that, his goals are achieved. What does this combination of not self-serving and yet also not benevolent suggest? It tells us that they are impartial and their concern is for the whole, not for any specific individuals, not even themselves. The wise person's goals would then not be personal goals, but goals in the service of the whole. Hence the whole, which is heaven and earth, endure eternally. Chapter 8. The best people are like water. Water benefits everything and yet does not strive against them. It penetrates to where people avoid, making it akin to the Tao. The best people are down to earth, think deeply, give with kindness, speak the truth, rule with order, handle affairs with ability, and move at the right time. Because they are not quarrelsome, no one finds fault with them. All living beings need water to survive. Water brings beneficial health and sustenance, and it does so without making its own demands. It flows everywhere. Chapter 78 adds that water is soft and weak, flexible, but this chapter is not about water. It is about how good people are like water. They are humble, conscientious, generous, kind, truthful, just, able, and act in a timely way. They, like water, do not contend with others, and so others do not contend with them. Water seems to be a weak metaphor, since water is not humble, conscientious, and so on. But perhaps water is apt in how it goes even where other things do not go. Wise people may have to plumb depths in thought to think what other people find taboo, uncomfortable, or even unthinkable. They may have to do what other people find difficult to do, such as being generous and kind, even to what is repulsive, to speak truth when truth is hard to listen to, making their governing, management of affairs, and actions apt. Yet because they are not self-serving, not trying to outdo others, not imposing their will on others, not forcing their views on others, others have no grounds to be unhappy with their actions. Chapter 9. Instead of filling a bucket till it is full, it is better to stop when it is enough. To keep sharpening a blade cannot preserve it for long. No one can safeguard a hall full of gold and jade. Arrogance that accompanies wealth and honor is a pitfall. Instead, withdraw after completing your work, for that is the way of heaven. It is not that Lao Tzu frowns on accumulation, but he thinks that it should be only to the point of sufficiency. When a bucket is filled to the brim, it is not only heavier to carry, burdening the carrier unnecessarily, it will also lead to spillage, benefiting no one but just wasting the water. Likewise, sharpening a knife makes it useful, but only up to a point. A blade is sharpened by removing some of the blade. Hence, sharpening it too frequently or too much just leads to a shortening of the blade's lifespan. A room full of treasures makes it the ideal place to rob. Likewise, flaunting one's wealth or becoming a proud person as a result of one's wealth or fame leads to one being a target of attack. Continuing his reflections on Wu Wei, Lao Tzu thinks that we should finish our work, but at the end of it not make a fuss or big deal of it, but instead quietly retreat. Why? Simply because it is the way of the Tao to work without striving and self-assertion. Lao Tzu is not even attempting to present arguments. This is what he understands of the Tao in his wisdom, and so he shares it as such. The reader is free to decide what to do with it. An inquisitive thinker may wish to work it out for himself whether this piece of wisdom makes sense. As Lao Tzu tells us in chapter 8, the wise person does not quarrel. Chapter 10. Can you unite your spirit without straying? Can you focus your breath to be as tender as a child? Can you purify your vision till it is faultless? Can you love your country and govern the people without assertion? Can you open and close heaven's gate at the appropriate time? Can your mind remain innocent despite having extensive understanding? Despite producing and developing things, to not claim ownership, to act but not rely on the fruits of action, to cultivate but not reap, that is deep virtue. To follow the Tao requires one to work on oneself. Lao Tzu lists the self-work that is required. To unite one's spirit, to focus one's breath, to purify one's vision, and to remain innocent despite developing an extensive understanding are acts of self-purification. Would a pure self then be able to love one's country and govern without assertion, and to know and open the gates of heaven at the right time? I do not think the list is meant to be sequential steps, but rather to be attempted simultaneously since they support one another. What can each mean? Here's my guess, since he does not elaborate. To unite one's spirit is to resolve the competing claims and desires that pull us in different directions, so that our spirit can then pull in one direction, the direction of the Tao. To focus one's breath is to train ourselves to be in control of our body, with the added physiological benefit of calming ourselves down through soft and slow and not forced and hurried breathing. Purifying one's vision clearly does not refer to the physical vision of the eyes, but our mental vision, to understand present phenomena without prejudices, but also to conceive one's goals without them being self-serving. I had explained for chapter 5 what is meant by Lao Tzu when he writes that nature and the wise person are not benevolent. Yet here he talks about loving one's country. Loving one's kin and loving an abstraction such as the people is not just a difference in scale or degree, but a difference in kind altogether, according to Henri Bergson. It is a different kind of love. It requires a certain level of enlightenment, since the people are mostly strangers, most of whom one will never even see or be in contact with in one's lifetime. Yet the wise person acts impartially in his non-benevolence, not even favoring his kin, to genuinely serve the people without ego and without personal advantage. To open and close heaven's gate, I take it to mean to know what to do at the right time. To remain innocent despite having extensive understanding is to remain uncontaminated by knowledge. For instance, if we knew a lot about the historical horrors that people have visited on one another, we may be inclined to believe that human beings are by nature bad. Let us go further. Say we are victims of violence or war. How hard will it be to remain innocent despite such harrowing knowledge and personal experiences? Will it be even possible to remain lucid and hopeful? It is no surprise that the wise person is a rare breed. Lao Tzu tells us of the deep virtue of such a person who can birth and foster, be it plants, children, or inventions, and yet not lay claim to them. To do the work without expectation of reward. Lao Tzu's wise person is a sage, a mystic, and a saint. Chapter 11. The hub of a wheel has 30 spokes converging on it, but its empty hole is what makes the hub useful for the cart. The vessel is made of clay, but its empty hollow is what makes the vessel useful. A room has doors and windows, but its empty space is what makes the room useful. An object needs matter for it to exist, but its emptiness is what makes the object useful. This chapter 11 is the clearest articulation in the Tao Te Ching of the usefulness of emptiness. Like the bellows and the cosmos in chapter 5, emptiness is what makes some things useful, such as wheel hubs, vessels, and rooms. Emptiness is what constitutes the essence of these things, and Lao Tzu extends this to the Tao, where its emptiness is the wellspring of its productivity and creativity. Chapter 12. Too much color can blind the eye, too much sound can deafen the ear, too much flavor can overwhelm our taste buds, racing and hunting can madden a person, rare goods can cause wrongdoing. Therefore, the wise person acts to satisfy the stomach and not the eye, caring for the inner self and not what is external. Overstimulation of our senses, too much excitement, too much envy, all draw us away from taking care of our spirit. It happens through distraction and a thirst for more just from sheer momentum. Indulging our desires only leaves us temporarily sated. The desire returns, reinforced with the alluring memory of its satisfaction, causing us to want it again, if not more, putting us on a hedonistic treadmill. Lao Tzu advocates satisfying our basic needs, such as nutrition, after which we can then move on to taking care of our spiritual needs. The pleasure of the senses drag us away from this. Hence, as I had written in chapter 9's commentary, it is not that Lao Tzu is against us taking care of ourselves at all. He in fact advises us to act to satisfy our basic needs first, since if we starve to death, then we cannot get to the second task of caring for our souls. Chapter 13. Favor and disgrace are both alarming. Honor and calamity are like the body or self. Why? Favor debases because when you are favored, you are alarmed, and when you lose the favor, you are alarmed. We only experience honor and calamity because we have a self. Without the self, where is the calamity? Therefore, only the person who honors and loves the empire as much as he loves himself can be entrusted with it. To seek to elevate ourselves leads to suffering. Even when one is favored, he is then fearful of falling out of favor. When one is disgraced, needless to say, he suffers. But this suffering happens only because we have egos. If we temper our ego, then even if we are disgraced, there is no suffering, since it is the ego that suffers from disgrace. Those who can be entrusted with the country are those who act from the right motivations, such as the good of the people and not, for instance, to gain favor from powerful people or to use their newly gained powers to benefit themselves. Their heart mind must be right if they are to be entrusted with the country's welfare. Lao Tzu is expressing a normative stance on what ideally should be the case. From what else he writes about rulers, he is clearly cognizant that what should be the case is often not the case. Chapter 14. Because we look but cannot see it, we call it indistinct. Because we listen but cannot hear it, we call it faint. Because we grasp but cannot get hold of it, we call it subtle. These three qualities make it unanalyzable, and yet they mix together to form a unity. From the top, it is not bright, but from below, it is not dark. It persists in being unnameable, repeatedly returning to nothingness. It is the form of the formless, the image of the immaterial. It is indeterminable. We meet it but do not see its face. We follow it but do not see its back. By grasping the Tao of the ancients, we can master the present. Understanding its ancient origins is to understand the history of the Tao. The Tao is ineffable. We are unable to physically grasp it. Our senses are unable to detect it. It is the form of the formless, the image of the immaterial, Lao Tzu writes. Things have forms, which we recognize as shapes. For instance, a book is rectangular shaped with a thickness making it a cuboid. A ball has a spherical shape. How about something like space, water, or air? Space, water, and air have no shape, taking on the shape of their containers. We can call their shape the shape of what has no shape, or the form of the formless. Things have an image, which we recognize as mental representations. What does an image, a picture of the immaterial, look like? We can capture images of material things, but how do we capture an image of what has no image because it is immaterial? If we take a photo of emptiness, what would that picture even look like? It will be an image of the surroundings of that emptiness. If that emptiness is the emptiness of a room, we will have an image of the room. Because emptiness is empty, its image can then be the image of anything. Likewise, because space, water, and air have no form, taking on the form of their container, their formlessness allows them to take on all forms, all shapes, be it the shape of a cup, a bottle, a bellows, or a room. The Buddhist Heart Sutra talks about how form is emptiness and how emptiness is form. Emptiness itself has a shape, which is the shape of what does not have shape. But this shape that is shapeless, because it has no shape, can take on any shape. Hence, emptiness in its shapelessness is in fact the potentiality for all shapes. Is this not the same with the Tao? Its emptiness is not just nothing, but the potentiality for all things. Lao Tzu teaches that the Tao is the origin of all things, where all things originate from no thing. It is also the unnatural unfolding of all things, the way from the Tao comes one, from one comes two, from two comes three, and from three comes all things, as he tells us in chapter 42. That is the history of the Tao. Understanding the nature of reality, which is that all things come from the Tao, then informs how we should live. Knowing that all things come from the Tao, we then should flow along with nature in harmony with the cosmos and not resist it, which is how we can then master the present. Chapter 15. The ancient masters penetrated the subtle mysteries, yet their profundity makes them hard to understand. Because they are hard to understand, I will try to explain. They are like those crossing a river in winter, cautious of their neighbors, reserved like guests, yielding like melting ice, simple like raw wood, vast emptiness like a valley, and obscure like murky waters. Who can elucidate the obscurity of truth? Who can calm the murky waters and hence make it clear? Who can rouse stillness to life? Those who preserve the Tao do not desire fulfillment. Because they do not desire fulfillment, they can hide away from the world and yet continue to develop. In chapter 8, Lao Tzu tells us that the best people, who presumably are followers of Tao, are humble, conscientious, generous, kind, truthful, just, able, act in a timely way, and not quarrelsome. Here in chapter 15, he presents a different picture of the masters of Tao. They seem careful, withdrawn, and hard to understand. He does once again reiterate their simplicity, openness, and flexibility. One way to understand this is that in their acts, they are humble, generous, kind, etc., while when they are teaching, they are careful and reserved, since what they teach is a doctrine that is difficult to understand. In chapter 56, Lao Tzu tells us that one who knows does not speak, one who speaks does not know. He says there that seekers of the Tao should block the passage and shut the door, and in this chapter that they hide away from the world. I will deal with eremitism in chapter 52 and 53. How can a teacher teach without speaking? How can the students learn? This is now the second time we encounter this point, the first time in chapter 2, where a wise person uses no words to teach. He can, however, teach through his actions, being an exemplar or role model. In several traditions, such as some schools of Buddhism, Hinduism, and Taoism, the only way one can become a master is to learn from a master. The master-student relation extends beyond religion to many other disciplines. We see it in education where we learn from teachers, music when one learns from a maestro, philosophy where there may be a formal or informal discipleship, and technical apprenticeship where a master instructs her apprentice. The relationship between a master and her student is needed because the vital lessons may not be doctrinal, not something one can learn from a book or a lecture, but is enacted in the day-to-day life of the guru. To learn to serve is not to read stories or even manuals on how to serve, but to carry out the act of serving. One cannot learn to swim by reading about it or even watching someone else do it. One needs to try to swim, and his attempts are much aided by a coach who is his guide, who shows him what to do, observes his strokes, corrects them, and protects him. Chapter 16. Seek maximal emptiness, protect stillness seriously. All things are carrying out their activities. I watch them proceed and revert. Living things grow and flourish and then return to their source. To return to the source is to seek stillness. To seek stillness is to return to life. To return to life is to know eternity. To know eternity is to be enlightened. To not know eternity leads to rash and fierce acts. To know eternity leads to forbearance. Forbearance is to be fair. To be fair is to be noble. To be noble is to be divine. To be divine is to accord with the Tao. To accord with the Tao is to endure. Hence, there is no need to fear losing bodily life. This chapter, 16, gives us a roadmap of life and death. We grow, we flourish, but to flourish also means the start of decline, as chapter 30 tells us. Instead of calling it death, Lao Tzu says that living things return to the source being the Tao. This returning is a cessation of movement, to go back to emptiness and to be still. Yet being still leads to a return to life. What is returning to life after death and stillness, if not reincarnation? Knowing that there is a return to life means that we know life carries on eternally. To know this is to be enlightened, while those who do not make this realization carry on in their harsh ways. The enlightened practices forbearance, which leads to fairness, which leads to nobility, which leads to divinity. To be divine is to accord with the Tao. To accord with the Tao is to endure, which suggests that Taoists believe in immortality. Schematically, birth leads to growth, leads to flourish, leads to decline, leads to death, leads to return to the Tao, leads to seek stillness, leads to return to life, leads to A or B, where A is to know eternity, leading to be enlightened, leading to forbearance, leading to fair, leading to noble, leading to divine, leading to accord with the Tao, leading to immortality. B, to not know eternity, leading to act rashly and fiercely, leading to death, leading to return to the Tao, leading to seek stillness, leading to return to life, leading to A or B. The method to accord with the Tao is to seek maximal emptiness and protect stillness seriously. Elsewhere, Lao Tzu tells us the way to do this is Wu Wei. Many chapters outline how to practically achieve this. Thank you for listening to the Philosophical Bachelor, and I'll see you next week.